Thank you.
They don't have to be.
Good afternoon, everyone. We'll call this September 26, 2019 meeting of the AMATS Policy Committee to order. Time is 1:31 p.m. Roll call, Mr. Peterson.
Present.
Mr. Constant. Mr. Whittleton. Here. Mr. Shifty. Here.
I'm here.
All right. Show that we have 5 folks here and we have a quorum. Okay, Craig, you want to do the public involvement announcements?
Yes, all AMATS meetings are open to the public. If we have a business item, we'll have a presentation by staff or a consultant. At that time, the committee will be given a chance to discuss it, and then after that, the public will be invited to comment.
All right, thank you. All right, do we have an approval of the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Are there any changes? Do we have any changes?
Mr. Chair, if we could add an informational item, a project update, if we could make it 6C, Midtown Congestion Relief Project. Folks are here, relatively short presentation on that topic.
All right. Any objections to those changes?
None.
Okay. Any objections to adopting the agenda? The agenda is therefore approved. Okay, I guess we have no meeting minutes from the previous meeting to approve. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Because they're not ready.
Because someone was hunting.
Someone was hunting.
And was it worth our meeting minutes?
Oh, nothing is worth that. No.
Okay. So we have no meeting minutes.
Okay.
So nothing to approve there. Okay, let's move on to agenda item 5, Citizens Advisory, 5A, Citizens Advisory Committee appointment. Craig, will you be presenting?
Yes. So our Citizen Advisory Committee has representatives from each assembly district. In addition, we have, among others, we have a representative of the Anchorage Chamber of Commerce and one from the Chugach Eagle River Chamber of Commerce. Debbie Renke is the suggestion here. This is a replacement for Debbie Osiander, who was there representing the chamber. Debbie Renke is actually the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce, so it's a natural replacement for Debbie Osiander. So the Technical Advisory Committee met and unanimously recommended her nomination to you folks. And I do not see her in the room today, but she did come to the Technical Advisory Committee. So,
okay, any questions or comments from the committee?
Just one comment and one question. The comment is you can never replace Debbie Osiander, try as you might. Secondly, do we get resumes of people that are being appointed, and why didn't we?
I believe, yes, no? It should be on your iPad there. Oh yeah, the 4th item over, or at least.
Oh, so close out of the memo and go to the resume. Thank you. Perfect. Thank you.
My question is it because Debbie Osiander has used up her time? Is that? Or
I think she was tired of seeing us.
Okay.
No, she just said she was ready to go do some other things that were a little more pressing for her and ready to take a step back from AMATS. As you know, she's been on the policy committee for a long time. She's a great policy committee member. We're very lucky that she was willing to serve on the Citizens Advisory Committee as well. So.
Okay. Any other comments from the committee? Okay. Any comments from the public on this particular appointment action?
I have a question.
Mr. Wilson?
Oh, do you want to finish?
No comments at all? Okay.
The resume looks fine, but I'm just, so, or is she appointed, how does her name come up?
So again, it's a seat that's held by the Chugach Eagle River Chamber of Commerce. And so we reach out to them and say, we have a seat that needs to be filled, and they just give us a name.
So someone from the chamber.
Someone from the chamber. And it can be, I mean, we don't put any parameters on it. They can be a member of the chamber, it can be their executive director. So the Anchorage Chamber of Commerce is Mr. Bustamante. So who's the director of I guess it's the title is the president of the Anchorage Chamber of Commerce. So it's whoever they want to send at us.
Any other last minute comments? Okay, so hearing no comments, what is the will of the committee?
Move to approve.
Second.
I'll give you credit.
That's fine.
He was quick. Okay, are there any objections to approving the motion? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Okay, moving on to agenda item 5B, Freight Advisory Committee appointment. Craig, you want to tell us?
Similar situation, as many of you know, Ace Thompson retired as director of the Alaska Trucking Association, and Bob Shake is his replacement. His resume is on there as well. We just got that recently. He's been traveling a lot, so, but that's the same thing. Wherever the Trucking Association wants to throw at us, and in this case, the Freight Advisory Committee has one of the seats designated as that Alaska Trucking Association. So he's got a lot of background in Alaska. He's born and raised here as well. So I think it's a good slot. And the Technical Advisory Committee recommended his nomination unanimously as well.
So he's Abe Thompson's replacement?
He is.
Okay.
The new Executive Director of the Alaska Trucking Association.
Is he here?
He is not here. I believe he's traveling. Is that right, John?
That's correct, yeah, he apologized and can't make it.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, Craig? Okay. Any questions or comments from the committee? Mr. Shake? Okay. Hearing none, any questions or comments from the public on Mr. Shake's appointment to the Freight Transportation Advisory? You got 3 minutes. Okay. All right. Well, then what is the will of the committee?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay. Any objections to approving the motion? Okay, hearing none, the motion is approved. Craig, are there any other action items before we move on?
Not that I know of.
Okay. Then we're going to move down to item 6A, project update for the 2040 MTP. Craig, are you on this one?
I believe Vivian is. There we go.
Thank you,
Definitely.
Mr. Chair. Just a quick schedule update. We'll have an agency review draft of the 2040 MTP in November, and we'll hope to have an AMATS review draft in January, with looking forward to a public review draft available for February and March. That's it.
Question. So,
Yes.
I'm sorry, what was the one out in November?
November will be an agency review draft. That will be with like DOT and resource agencies where we're required to have consultation with them. And then we'll consider their edits and bring something back for the TAC and the CAC in January. And I guess it's highly optimistic that we won't have any edits, but it would be nice to get a release of it in January. But so that's our optimistic timeframe.
And then the public sees it
Hopefully in
Late January.
Well, February, March.
February, March.
Because you meet at the end of January, basically.
So public, how long is their comment period then?
I'm going to request a 45-day period. I think the community councils would appreciate that. It gives them time to receive it, act on it, and then vote on it.
Okay, good, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee on this? No? Any comments or questions from the public on the MTP 2040? Okay. All right. Hearing none, moving on to item 6B, Public Transportation Department Short Range Plan Presentation. Craig?
Mr. Rudolph.
Hello. I'll turn up the light here. I'm Bart Rudolph. I'm the Planning and Communications Manager for People Mover. Christine Schutte is our transit planner, no relation. And she's been a project manager for Transit on the Move, which I'll talk about here in a second. First thing, we did get all new logos for all of our different services. A lot of people don't know that the Public Transportation Department also does the rideshare program and Anchor Rides, but we've been using this People Mover logo here kind of unofficially for a couple of years. Our buses still have the old logo. So over time, we'll be transitioning to these 3 new logos. And give everybody a pen, and there's some other pens here for. So it's been almost 2 years since we've redesigned our system. We did it October in 2017 with the idea of fast and frequent. We got out of the neighborhoods and we increased the frequency. It used to be all of our routes came almost every 60 minutes. Now we have several that come every 15 minutes. So the red lines are every 15 minutes, the blue lines are every 30 minutes, the green lines are every 60 minutes. Since we've introduced the new service, we've made 2 system adjustments. We do a system adjustment pretty much every year anyway. Just minor tweaks on things that we've heard. We've realigned the neighborhood routes. The neighborhood routes used to be contracted out through a contractor. So in July of just this year, we brought those back in-house. So those are all people mover drivers. It's helped with customer service and on-time performance, and just there's better training. They know the routes a little bit better, less turnover. And then we've also made some changes like the 65, which goes from the Diamond Center, used to go to Spenard, now to go to the airport. So now if you're coming from the Diamond Center, you can go to the airport. And then the Route 55, we extended it a little bit to ANMC. So a few minor tweaks here and there over the last couple of years. If you look at just 2019, if we compare it to 2018, so this is the second year of the new system compared to the first year of the new system, we've had ridership increases every month. Started out a little small in January, and then you can see in May, June, July, almost double-digit increases every month compared to just 2018. This is what our system was doing before the system changed, so everything in this gray box is what's happened before. So this is 2018, which is our highest ridership, or 2008, sorry, 2008, our highest ridership year. This is 2017, so you can see decline, decline, decline every year for about a decade. If we would have continued that trend, this is where we would have been, so that's the dotted red line, if we would have continued the same rate of decline. But since the new system, we have a little bit of an increase now. So if you just look at, I'm going to come up here so I can see a little bit. June, 12,027 people on an average weekday. So every weekday, about 12,000 people riding the bus. Compare that to 2017, 2016, and almost back up to 2015 levels. So in 2 years, we're almost back up to 2015 levels. When you look at June, the same thing is when you add in August. I updated it since we've given it to the TAC. Same thing, August 2016, 2015, almost back up to 2015 levels. So we're moving in the right direction for ridership. If you look at Saturday, you can see we're above the forecasted rate of decline, so we're even above on Saturday. We're almost back up to 2014 levels for Saturday ridership, and we gave a lot of service on Saturdays because that's the one thing that we heard loud and clear was people wanted more service on the weekends. So it used to be no bus went less than once an hour. Now most of the buses are every half hour, and we extended the hours, so now it goes till 8 o'clock. It used to stop at 6 o'clock. So a little bit better, still not where we want to be. We have a lot of work to do on the weekends for our service. Sunday, we're at an all-time high for ridership. So August of 2019, and it used to be in 2011 was our highest ridership. So the highest ridership we've ever seen on Sundays.
Question?
Yep.
So do we have more buses, or are we running more routes on Sundays?
We have more hours, so more frequency, so more buses on the weekends as well. Yeah, so just coming more frequent, and then the later hours.
Okay.
Saturday and Sunday used to have slightly different schedules. We always stopped an hour less on Sundays, and just in July we made them equal. So now a Saturday and a Sunday schedule are the same. So it runs from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and it used to be 8 to 6 or 8 to 5 even.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Well, maybe you'll answer this. That's great, but how are they getting around before? They have, I mean, they quit using a car, they leave it at home, or I'm just curious.
Well, that's always the question, like what makes ridership go up, you know, and it could be a multitude of things. We think it's mainly the frequency on the weekends, just because when we were doing our Anchorage Talks Transit plan, we heard that once an hour is not enough on the weekends, just later service. So I think that that has helped on the weekends, but not entirely sure. About every 8 to 10 years, we do a ridership survey. So we'll probably do one of those next year just to see how this new system's working and help find out that.
They must substitute, maybe they were walking to work, now they take the bus, or riding their bike, or maybe
Could be.
driving.
Yeah, or they were taking fewer trips. I think one of the reasons with this whole new system is you can take more trips throughout the day. And so instead of like just going to Walmart once every 2 weeks, maybe you go once a week now, you know, because it's easier. So it could be a whole variety of factors. We have a partnership with the Anchorage School District where they pay us and we give all, or not all, some schools free ridership. So Just last year, we expanded that to 40-something schools, 42 middle schools and secondary schools. And you can see that that's really increased. So 67,000 back in 2015, and we're up to 141,000 rides last year. So we continued that program this year, but this is really important for us because during the school year last year, it was 6% of our ridership. And one of the keys to having a successful transit system and increased ridership is you need to diversify that ridership. And having young students is a great way to do that because they ride, they get the parents to ride, they become lifelong riders. It's a good start, and 6% is a pretty good number. Never like to forget about our other divisions. So rideshare, just a reminder, this is a program that AMATS funds. Currently have 77 van pools. We changed contractors, so we partner with Enterprise now. So they used to get a big 13-passenger white van. Now they get brand new SUVs with Enterprise, and those get upgraded every 2 years. And it's right size. So a 13-passenger van for a ride share, you used to have at least 10 people to ride with you. Now you can have as little as 4 people, and you get an SUV. So they can, depending on how many people you have in your carpool, determines the size of your vehicle. So it's helped. And then just a little reminder, so just in August of last year, we took 591,000 miles of travel off the Glen Highway. And then in 2018, 6.6 million vehicle miles. So these are mostly people commuting from the valley or from J-Bear. We just now recently opened it up to Eagle River and South Anchorage since we eliminated some service there. They used to not be eligible for rideshare. Now they can sign on, so that's kind of growing as well. And then an added perk, one thing that we've heard with rideshare is if you're in a van pool, you get to Anchorage, you get to your job, and then you're stuck there until your van pool comes and picks you up. So just 2 months ago, we started giving them free passes to People Mover. So now if you are in a van pool, you have a free bus pass and you can travel wherever you want to go throughout the day. You're not just stuck at your job. So that's helped, that's growing as well. Anchor Rides, just real quick, this is our paratransit service. So this is for seniors and people with disabilities. 132,000 trips last year, and the main reason people use Anchor Rides is for medical trips and work trips, which is what you would kind of think. It's a little bit more expensive, but we open it up to all of Anchorage, and then the service in Eagle River and Chudiak is done by the Chudiak Senior Center now.
It work? Do you integrate with Medicare or Medicaid for elderly rides?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we bill directly. Okay, so that's where we are now. Transit on the Move is our short-range transit plan that we're working on right now. It is a little tough to tote some of the successes of the transit system because we know there are parts of the city that are completely left out of the transit system now, or people that used to have service no longer have service. So while it's working really well for the people who live close to the transit lines, there are people that are still left in the gaps. So this is a short-range plan designed to figure out what would be next if we got more funding. So our funding has pretty much been level for the last 5 or 6 years. We don't expect a big windfall of money, just like any other government agency, but we do want to have a plan, or we want to have at least buy-in from the public as to if we get more money, what would we do first? Because right now, if we did that, we wouldn't know. We would just be a guess. But we want something that's been vetted through the public so that we would know, and it helped the citizens advocate all together for one unified thing. So the plan will address People Mover, Anchor Rides, and Rideshare. This is our project timeline. So we started back in August of 2018. We released our system report card in December, which really analyzed the first year of our bus system. We'll put together another report card at the end of 2019, just to show you how the second year went. In February of 2019, we had our first public event series, and we talked about things like accessibility, convenience, and reliability, and we took a whole bunch of comments. I'll talk about that in a second. And then in June, May-June, we had our second public event series where we started talking about new route alignments. And so we are now in the prioritized projects phase where we're taking all the comments that we received about the new route alignments and figuring out how to prioritize them, how to weight them, how to work with our performance targets as to what we would prioritize over the other. So quick recap of Public Event Series 1 that happened in February. We had 541 people comment, and we had boards at all of the meetings where people could have a sticky note, a Post-it note, and they could post it on any one of these boards. and we helped them categorize them into whether it felt or went into accessibility, convenience, or reliability, or then we had an other board for just other comments. And we heard a lot of people wrote a lot of comments, a lot of post-it notes on multiple boards throughout the public meetings. But we heard a lot of things. So we heard keep the system as it is, but actually make it better, or keep this frequency. And then we heard put back the old system. So it was a little bit of a mixed thing. We also heard overwhelmingly we need service on Old Seward Highway, and we need service to the Lusac Library. So this was not really surprising. It's what we've been hearing all along, but it did come out in all of the public meetings. 185 comments said that we needed to increase coverage. 17 were talking about the fare structure, and then 36 were just how we relay information when it comes to accessibility. When we said convenience, people had ideas for route alignments, new route alignments. A lot of comments for expanding the hours of our existing service, increase or decrease the frequency and bus stop spacing. Reliability, 52 comments just about safety and maintenance, a lot of calls for transit security. 20 were just about bus drivers, good or bad. 26 was on-time performance. And then in the other category, we had 25 general comments just about the service in general, or really about how we relay information to the public. And then Anchor Rides got 16 comments, and then one lonely comment for a ride share.
What was it?
I don't know. Do you remember?
No, I know.
I don't remember what it is.
Okay.
So when we get our public comments, we summarize them into like infographic type things. And so these are available on our website. But if you ever want more information about where we got our comments or how it breaks down into the pie charts, you can get that online. And then we have even more detail about every comment that we've received is on there too. Public Event Series 2 that happened in May and June, just a few months ago. We had people vote for new routes, so we had 323 people vote. We had project maps that were delightfully named after animals found in Alaska. I only say that because that was the fight between me and Christine over which animals we were going to name them at. She introduced the wood frog, which I don't know if you guys know is the only amphibian in Alaska. I learned that as part of this project, so transit does teach you things. So anyway, lots of different route ideas. We had we had realignments of existing routes being proposed. All of the route alignments that we had on these boards came directly from the public. This is not us drawing any new lines. These are routes that we heard back in February. We also had brand new routes, like something on Old Seward. We had one that went into Independence Park in South Anchorage, over on Elmore. We had this idea called microtransit, which is really just like an Uber or Lyft style, but with one of our 16-passenger vans. You would use an app. It would come pick you up. It would be integrated with our fare system. It would take you anywhere within that green zone, and if you had to travel outside of that green zone, it would drop you off at the nearest frequent route, so the bus would come and pick you up in 15 minutes. So the one that got the most votes through this process is Project H, which is maybe hard to see, but it's this orange line. It starts at the Diamond Transit Center, goes up Old Seward Highway to the library, over Spenard to Wisconsin to West Anchorage before heading back downtown. So out of all the routes that we proposed, that got the highest number of votes. In Eagle River, the one that got the highest number of votes was not a little interlooper within Eagle River. We even proposed a route that went all the way to the Matsu Valley. The one that got the most votes was just a minor realignment of the existing 92. We get off on Artillery right now. They want us to get off on the exit before, because there's a park and ride lot. So that one got the most votes for Eagle River.
I forgot about that.
And for Eagle River, we actually stood outside the bus stop, so everyone that rides the Eagle River bus walked right into our public meeting and cast a vote. So they were all existing riders. We also had ideas that were not routes, just because we hear a lot of things like that, such as adding back service on the holiday. A couple years ago, part of a budget cut, we lost service on some holidays. Increasing the frequency, adding service on the weekends or the weekdays, transit security, and then a couple for anchor rides, such as same-day scheduling. They could also propose their own, so we have blank lines, and if they wanted to draw their own route, they could do that. So these are our voting boards. Had to use a couple boards to get all the votes in. Out of all the votes received, they were pretty split, half and half. So 50% wanted a brand new route, 50% wanted just a realignment of existing route. If they wanted a realignment, or of the new routes, 38% of them went to the LUSAC library. So pretty loud and clear that the library needs to be served better. Top projects, so the top 5 projects that we're looking at is Old Seward Highway routes, one of those. Transit security came in second, so this would be some kind of uniformed transit security presence either at the bus stops or on the bus themselves. Adding service on the weekends, so like we've already seen, the increased service has already had increased ridership. People want more service on the weekends, later service. A route on 36th Avenue, a route back in Independence Park or Elmore came in tied for fourth, I guess. And those are our top 5. All the other ones came in here in this category. So that's summarized as well. So if you want to know how every route, how the votes came out, there's a summary online. You can get that information. So where we are now, we're getting ready for our public event series 3, which is really just going to be a release of the public document. We're prioritizing and finalizing all the projects. We're going to have a cost estimate. Nothing in this plan is going to be cost neutral. Everything is an additional cost. So we don't have money for that, so it's going to be very clear that this is just if additional money becomes available, this is what we would do. There'll also be a listing or some kind of way to say if we get a budget cut, here's how we're going to figure out which service gets cut, and try to have that vetted a little better through the public. So we're going to have a public review draft probably in November, late November. And that'll be the last part of this before we get it adopted, hopefully early 2020. I think that's it.
Any questions from the committee? Or Mr. Pearson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you're getting so many comments about the old Seward route. Is there a possibility we might be able to start that back up? And if it is a possibility, when would that when might that happen?
If we get additional funding, we could start it up. It would probably take at least 6 months from when we got the funding to start it up again. We have to reinstall some bus stops. When we remove the bus stops, we can only put them back if they're ADA compliant. Some of them are not ADA compliant, so we have to make them compliant before we can start service again. So I'd say about 6 to 8 months depending on the timeline, but service on Old Seward Highway costs about $2 million a year, so we would need an increase of about $2 million.
So what if it only went from the LUSAC library to the Diamond Center?
It'd be a little less. We could work on that.
Please don't do that.
Yeah.
Our representative from downtown freak out that only South Anchorage people can get to the blue side.
Yeah, I mean, we proposed a number of routes that had a lot of variations from the Diamond Center, and the public very clearly wanted this one. But
Any other questions from the
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
I have people in my district calling me about Old Seward route because they want to get down to the, they have to walk a mile and a half to get from a bus or whatever to where they're trying to get down along the Old Seward or something. And the guy's 80 years old, so a mile and a half's a pretty good hike.
Carl.
yeah, talking to Carl.
Any questions from the public on this presentation? In the back?
I'm wondering how this is going to relate to the Cheryl Richardson is the name. I'm wondering how it's going to relate to the long range or the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. And when we talked to the MTP folks, a few months ago, because there would be no funding, there was no future vision for transit. And while this is a short-term vision, what's being done for the long-term vision?
So part of this will carry over to the long-term vision because we are going to have way more projects than we could ever forecast in the short term. So we'll prioritize them all, and it really will just be like a checklist as funding becomes available. For the MTP, we can't forecast any additional funding. So none of these projects are in this round of MTP. We also did that intentionally because none of this has been vetted through the public. So we didn't want transit to come up with a bunch of projects to put in the MTP, which is on a slightly higher time frame because we would have had to have those in already. So next go around, these projects will tie into the MTP directly. That's the plan. Unless you guys have anything.
Through the chair, so we could talk about them in text in the MTP and just have a paragraph or so, or a couple of paragraphs about the types of things that you're looking at, but that we won't have projects.
Right. Not until we're able to forecast additional funding.
Perhaps one juxtaposition, one thing we could come together on is for the MTP to include a project that calls for a strategy or a variety of strategies to choose from to start funding transit at a normal urban level.
Any other comments from the public on this subject? Okay.
I just have a question, and this has nothing to do with your presentation, but I've noticed when I'm at stoplights and I'm near a bus that there seem to be no advertising on quite a few of the signs. They're saying this spot available to advertise. How's the advertising on the bus revenue stream this year? Are we below, up, down?
We're actually slightly up. Political seasons are our big moneymakers. So right now we're not there, but yeah. So we have a lot of advertising right now, but it's all in waves. But as of 2018 or 2019 in general, we're up a little bit. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Any other comments? All right. Okay. Craig, we'll go ahead and move on to item 6C, which was added. That's the Midtown Congestion Relief Project. Go ahead, Craig. So I think we have two folks here.
Thanks for
Introduce
having us
yourself.
again. Yeah. Sean Holland with the DOT. And I think we were here maybe about a year ago when we were maybe mid-process, but we're here to talk about the Midtown Congestion Relief Planning and Environmental Linkage. Reminder that, so we're focused on the Seward Highway corridor, starting at Tudor to the south, working to 20th Avenue on the north. This corridor has, some of the biggest traffic-related issues in the city, in the state, actually, that Steve's going to cover in more detail here in a minute. It also has the highest traffic volume in the state, so any improvements we make on this corridor are going to have a positive effect to more Alaskans than any other project that I see in the MTP. Where we are in the process is that we have a draft final document for the PEL, and that's going through DOT through an internal review right now. I think we plan on releasing that to the public in probably 2 to 4 weeks in advance of our public open house, which is scheduled for the 12th. The project team that DOT contracted with to put the PEL together is led by Dow, and their subcontractors are Kittleson and Associates and Jacobs Engineering. And these guys were selected largely because our core team is our Anchorage residents. They know the community, they're passionate about the community, passionate about this project, and passionate about the success of the system. What it also allows us is access to experts down in the States that have solved similar problems to this in other areas. And then also, this is the first PEL that Central Region DOT has put together, so we're able to access people who have authored, a dozen PELs to help guide us through the process and make sure we're compliant with the federal process. History of the project, we started off with, the DOT started off several years ago with the Highway to Highway project, and I guess in my mind the timing was poor. It was kind of competing against some other mega projects in the state at the time, and it went away just because it looked like too big of a bite. From there, the DOT focused on maybe the worst problem in the corridor, the Seward Highway and 36th Avenue intersection. And, I think our scope was a little bit too myopic there, that we came up with a concept, but it didn't address some access questions that the local users had. And so that, we couldn't answer some of those questions on access, so that, the kind of thought behind our current corridor is that we're looking for the Goldilocks project, right? The right size. We want to expand the scope large enough so that we can answer some of those access problems, but then not increase it so much that we get the mega project label, I guess. So, our goal was to look at this corridor and identify like 3 to 5 projects within that corridor, which would have independent utility and independent benefit, but then also be affordable. So our strategy, we changed our strategy a little bit for this project in that we wanted to make it more of a community-focused concept. So wanted to get as much input from the public that we could, and we've had a high level of public involvement and stakeholder engagement, and we use that input to help us form our concepts. And we've tried to have as transparent a process as possible. We've presented to anybody that's asked us to present. We've hosted, a bunch of individual meetings, or any group that's asked us to present. We've done that. We've even gone as far as, a project team, not me personally, has gone out and knocked on some doors. And there's some people that are directly affected by the project, and we wanted to make sure that they didn't show up to a public meeting and see a road going through their house for the first time. So we wanted to talk to some of those people, and the level of public involvement is unprecedented as far as my experience, and I've been building projects in Anchorage for quite a while. It's important to note that from our origin and destination study that we're not looking at a bypass project. 70 to 80% of the traffic that's in Midtown is either originated in Midtown or it's destined to Midtown. So it's not a bypass project, it's a Midtown project. So we consider the city as a partner in this project, or in this list of projects, and so we've put focus on being consistent with all the plans that are adopted under the city, and including the land use plan. There's some realities, that we have to look at this point in the PEL that we're coming up on the end, and if this was an easy project, it would have been built 10 years ago. This corridor has some of the worst problems in the city, and they need to be addressed. And we're not. The reality is we're not going to get 100% consensus. If you look at our website, we have an interactive map where people can get on there and comment, and there's conflicting opinions on just about any element of that project that you can think of. So we've met with we have advisory groups that we've met with, and we've compromised on a lot of our concepts, and we feel like we have pretty good, from those groups we have positive feedback. We have pretty good momentum on the project, and we need to move forward. So I'm going to turn it over to Steve so he can give a presentation on the details. But 3 things that I think we should take a look at, or you guys should kind of focus on, is the active transportation routes that they haven't been really showing up, I guess, to people that have been watching the presentation, but they're there, and they far exceed the bike and ped plan routes that are in the currently adopted plans. Understand the 2-phase signals, as opposed to the 4-phase signals that are out there today, and understand why what we're showing is going to be much more efficient than what we have today. And then if you see an issue with our concepts, try to be specific so that we can either show you that we've addressed them or that we can try to address them. At this point, I'll turn it over to Steve. Thanks.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate the opportunity to come here and present and give you a little bit of an update. This is an informational briefing and a lot of information to squeeze into 15 minutes here, so I'm going to go through fairly quickly, and then we'll have a chance to hopefully have some time for questions. And I'll try not to repeat what Sean just went through, which was a very good introduction. We'll go through the status and update. Just a real quick reminder on these first few things: the vision and goals, why some of the bigger issues that we're seeing out there that are helping to drive the need for the improvements. We'll talk about the public outreach, what we've heard, the concepts as they currently exist, and the path forward. So, as Sean mentioned, we've had a very extensive public outreach process. We've been going for almost 2 years now, and so far we've had a couple of open houses. We've got 3 advisory groups that have met 5 times with each of those advisory groups, and we've met with dozens of individuals. And right now we're getting ready to release that draft PEL to the public, and with the goal of having a final document in November or December of this year. At that time, the state will move forward with the All of this work right now is pre-NEPA, pre-environmental documentation. It is the first time this process has been used in Central Region, so we're still very early. And we're trying to help the public understand that the NEPA process, the environmental process, still has to move forward. That will in and of itself have a public process that will reach out for each of those individual projects that come out of this plan. So as a reminder, our recommendations focus around the Seward Highway, but we've been studying the entire area from Lake Otis over to C Street and from 15th down to Tudor, because we know that it's a midtown issue and not a Seward Highway corridor bypass type issue. And we're looking for projects that have independent utility, they're fundable, reconstructed in a logical sequence, and that we minimize the impacts. Through the public process, in a PEL process, you really do start with a blank slate. Sean mentioned those other projects that had come out, but we went back and went out to the public and said, tell us what you see are the issues out here. And that helped us to develop our vision and goals here. And it's really captured by this image, which is that for the Seward Highway, we're trying to improve mobility, and that comes at the expense of reducing our access to Seward Highway. But equally important, or maybe more so important, is that we improve our access and connectivity to Midtown and increase our multimodal facilities that are out there. And overall, the kind of our vision statement that we've got is that we're trying to improve safety and mobility for all users on the Seward Highway while enhancing east-west multimodal safety, connectivity, and access for Midtown. The goals that came out of that public process, starting with safety, improve safety for all users, maintain access to the adjacent land uses, improve access, particularly for the non-motorized traffic modes. Environmental, we don't have a lot of kind of natural environment type issues in this area. There's a little bit of wetlands and those kind of things, and we've got the creek, of course, but the main issues here are the noise and visual impacts to the adjacent property owners. And then on the mobility and connectivity side, improve connections for motorized and non-motorized users. And then lastly, there, reduce congestion on the Seward Highway and the cross streets. But just to, this is hard to see, but kind of the three main issues that we've heard from the public that are driving this project is that Seward Highway is a barrier in more ways than one. It's a barrier for east-west mobility for the residential area on the east side and the business area on the west side. The number of lane crossings for the pedestrians are so wide. You're generally talking 9 or 10 lanes, and so it's at least most of them are two-phase crossings, and you're crossing multiple directions on a single movement. That barrier, that congestion that has occurred on this corridor has led to an elevated motorized and non-motorized crash rates. This is just the pedestrian and bicycle fatalities and major injuries over the last 10 years. And you can see we've got a cluster right here in the Northern Lights Boulevard, Benson area. And it's also interesting to note that we have a similar cluster along A and C Street. And the things that we're talking about here on Seward Highway can potentially improve not just Seward Highway corridor, but by making those things more smooth and taking the whole region into account, we're looking like we can help improve some of those issues on other corridors as well. And the other thing is that we've got the highest volumes and longest delays in the state in this corridor. Steve?
Yes. So I guess that's the first time I've heard it expressed that way. To your point, the Midtown Congestion Relief Project on the Seward Highway corridor is going to have a ripple effect on C Street?
Yeah, because this corridor by, the goals here that we're trying to accomplish for Seward Highway and what's shown in the MTP with the Seward Glen connection will pull traffic off of the A and C corridor, off of Lake Otis Parkway. We're seeing reduced traffic volumes on some of these other corridors that should have some benefit for safety issues on those other corridors as well.
But backing up to one of your earlier points, people aren't traveling through Midtown, they're traveling to Midtown. So volumes on Benson, Northern Lights, et cetera, would stay the same or elevate, right? Because these, if you look at the map, the intersections are what are killing people. Down at Benson, Northern Lights,
Right.
C Street.
It is generally the intersections. Yeah, and this is not going to solve all of the midtown issues. We're just saying that we're hoping there's a beneficial impact to some of these other corridors by pulling some of the higher speed traffic to a freeway type facility. But certainly there are other things in the MTP that will have to have a bigger impact on some of these other clusters. So public outreach, we've had an extensive public process. We've talked about, I won't go over it all because we've talked about it already, but some of the things that we've tried to do are in addition to the traditional items are the advisory groups. So in total, we've had a count of 15 advisory group meetings with our 5 meetings with each group, and we've had 3 different groups. We've been in steady attendance at the community council meetings. And that's been very beneficial because it helps us stay in touch with what their issues are, and every month they get to hear a little bit about where we're at on the project. And then we've had just really countless one-on-one meetings with the business owners, property owners. As Sean mentioned, we've gone door to door with any of the property owners that are adjacent to the corridor so that they don't show up to a meeting and see a project that's impacting their particular business or residents. And we are continuing to do that, and we actually hope as we're moving forward to take those advisory groups and actually to aggregate them into one advisory group and continue to have them as a community working group that will advise us as we go through the next phases of the NEPA process. So the main issues that we've heard, by far the most common issue concern is that a depressed freeway option is really the only acceptable option from the public's perspective and from the business's perspective. The visual and noise issues associated with an elevated freeway are viewed as being a deal killer, and our team has, and you'll see that our concept does recommend a depressed freeway section. Improve facilities for walking and bicycling. Retaining and improving east-west connections for all transportation modes. This is not just about those cars on Seward Highway. It's about all modes. Consider additional opportunities for east-west connections. So we're trying to find other ways and make it so that, with the goal really of having it so pedestrians don't have to walk more than a quarter mile or so to get to an elevated or a grade separated crossing over the Seward Highway. We're trying to make sure that we're supporting, comments about supporting land uses in Midtown and the adjoining Seward Highway, supporting the 2040 land use plans call for a city center in Midtown, and we're going to have a working group that's kind of dedicated to that moving forward. And then we're also, concerns about the right-of-way acquisition, whether we widen to the east or the west. The right-of-way issues has been probably one of the main issues why this project hasn't moved forward in the past, because there is not enough space. It's a varying right-of-way through there, and there's not enough space for this without some right-of-way acquisition. So how do we minimize that? Look carefully at the acquisition. Don't just go where it's easiest, but look where you can mitigate and where it's most practical, not just where it's cheapest. So continuing on from the comments from the public, we've heard a lot of people say, get it done, get it built. We want to see, we're tired of this kind of situation. As long as it's got the depressed freeway, we're in favor of it. We've heard genuine concern about some of the concepts, particularly some of the concepts that are viewed as interim concepts that leave a wide green space in the middle. Concerns about what will that space look like, and will it be a negative effect on the adjacent properties. Concerns about some folks would want us to go back and look at our screening on phase 2, and we're going to do that in October. Invite our groups to come back and get more involved in the phase 2 screening of the concepts. And then again, I mentioned the desire to kind of continue to be involved and to better define how this is going to look. How can we reinforce the quality of life that we're looking for the Midtown area, and so getting our working groups together, tackling that issue is going to be a major public outreach effort moving forward. This area has, when you walk out there, for being one of our busiest areas and having some of the most highest volumes, it's had a lot of wear and tear over the years. And some of our pedestrian facilities are really just horrible, with utilities blocking them. They're depressed. They don't meet ADA. In some places, they're just missing. The conditions out there are great. There's a great need for, particularly for non-motorized facilities, a great need for those kind of improvements. I just wanted to set that stage for, and then summarize real quickly how we've gone through the concepts and led to where we are today. A couple years ago, when we started this, we really had this blank slate. We had kind of a variety of different concepts. We went through a phase 1 screening where we screened out the concepts that were not reasonable to move forward. We had about 4 or 5 concepts that made it to a detailed evaluation. And then we had our phase 2 screening over the summer, early fall, and we've arrived at really two concepts at this point. One we're calling a multi-interchange concept, one we're calling a collector-distributor concept. Before I get into the details of those, how the vehicles and the motorized elements operate, I want to first focus on the non-motorized elements, because this is, sometimes it can easy once you see the car lanes on the road to think that this is all, that we're not paying attention to this, but this non-motorized structure is ingrained into all of the concepts. And essentially we're trying to fill in all the missing pieces and provide separated multi-use pathways along the road, both north-south on the outside of the right-of-way for Seward Highway, and as well on all of the cross streets that go across Benson, go across the Seward Highway. These would all be grade separated or a bridge over or under the Seward Highway. And we're also looking at, what's not shown here is that we're also looking at one here at 33rd, where the city's got a pedestrian improvement project along 32nd, 33rd. We're also looking at putting an overpass right here, depending on which concept we're talking about. And we've also, in one of the concepts, we're potentially looking at one over here as well.
Steve?
Yes.
I'm going to try and keep you to 30 minutes.
Okay, so how much time do I got left?
You've already burned up 20. So.
Okay, I'll keep moving here. So one of the things we've heard from the public is that they want to have a more pedestrian scale type facilities. And so the frontage roads that we're talking about, we're trying to keep them down to 2 or 3 lanes in general with a buffered pedestrian walkway. So that is what we're trying, if you can envision, that's a big change from what we have over Midtown today. But that's what we're shooting for. And then the other thing is that we're trying to improve some of the deteriorated facilities. I mean, this is, believe it or not, this is the pedestrian crossing at C Street, where Chester Creek crosses the Greenbelt, or Seward Highway crosses the Chester Creek Greenbelt. And this is Chester Creek and the outfall for the storm drain system. So we're looking at something that's much more open with a bridge and a pedestrian walkway, similar to what is elsewhere on the Chester Creek corridor. Okay, so let's get into the concepts real quick here. Just from a simplistic standpoint, we're trying to help folks understand just visually. This is the multi-interchange concept. It would have a freeway down the middle, and then it would have the blue lines indicate a frontage road, which this one's these arrows are mixed up. It should be one way this direction and one way this direction. And then the green arrows indicate where there's ramps to those bridges. The Seward Highway would cross either over or under 36th, and then it would dive down and go under Benson, Northern Lights, and Fireweed. These roads would cross at grade, and the freeway would be down in a trench with cap over the highway in certain sections of the highway. The collector-distributor concepts are much simplified because we don't have nearly as many ramps. We just have ramps at the beginning and the end, which we collect the road onto those side frontage roads. The primary advantage of the multi-interchange concept is that we can kind of keep these frontage roads at a 2 to 3 lane level for this concept versus on this concept, the frontage roads are more like 3 to 4 lanes for this concept because we're collecting that traffic and carrying it longer distances. We're not dumping it off to the highway quite so often. So visually, trying to help folks understand and see what we're talking about here, this is an image of the multi-interchange concept right here with what's envisioned with the cap section of the highway that's been in discussions with our advisory group. So the new highway would come down and would either go over or under 36. We do have some flexibility. We're showing over right now, but there is some flexibility there. But it's much more expensive to go under. But there are some things. There's some things we could do to mitigate that and keep the height down. But we are definitely showing going under 36 Benson and Northern Lights, and these streets all cross at grade with a capped section of the highway. Primarily, working with our advisory groups, the real heart of the city center that folks want to keep there with that more pedestrian scale type atmosphere is right there between Fred Meyer and New Car Safeway.
Steve, you can go back.
Yeah.
Other than the on-ramp you showed next to Rogers Park there, why not extend the cap to Fireweed and beyond?
So that's the main reason why it stops there is if we have this on-ramp come down here, then we can't cap where the ramp is.
I guess that's what I'm asking. That's the only reason.
If you extend it down, then this lane has to stay 2 or 3 lanes all the way down here instead of 1. Right now we can dump that traffic off to Seward Highway, and then we only have to have 1 lane passing by the homes here instead of 2 or 3. So I think there's a noise benefit for this area. But that is an option from if you were it does add more cost, as Jim just said. If you push this over here and pull this down, cap for you could probably cap to slightly past Fireweed, but then after that you would lose the elevation to be able to cap any further. Yes.
And did I hear you say right that it's more expensive to depress it than it would be to raise it?
That's correct. It is more expensive to depress than to raise it. Yep.
Oh, I would have thought it'd been the other way around.
No, it's considerably more expensive, probably on the order of double. Per linear foot of highway, it's about double to depress compared to going up, and that's primarily because we've got a high water table in this area that we've got to account for how to drain that, to deal with the water that would be associated, creates buoyant forces on the bottom of our section. I know my time's about up, so I'm gonna let you just kind of thumb through your figures there and look. The rest of the figures just kind of show generally the concepts, the various projects that make up the individual, that make up the concepts, and you can see that they're broken down really by interchange, Tudor Road, then 36, and we've got a couple of options for how 36 would be laid out. And then we've got another concept here for the third project would be really this, the projects 2 and 3, which are at 36th, and then the third one, which is the intersection improvements at Benson, Northern Lights, and Fireweed, is really trying to create this couplet configuration for the Seward Highway that, as Sean talked about, we would change all the signals to be 2-phase signals instead of 4-phase signals. So instead of the 160-second cycle, we would have 60 to 80-second cycles. We'd be able to progress traffic at the speed that we want to, because we'd have one-way couplets similar to Northern Lights Benson or 5th, 6th Avenue. And then the next projects would be coming through and building the freeway down the middle of the couplet configuration.
See, how long does that phase 3, how long would that phase 3 exist?
So phase 3 would exist until there was funding for the rest. It would have enough capacity that it could be in place just for a short amount of time until the freeway gets built, or it would have the capacity to handle a longer amount of time.
Is it a lane? It's hard to tell from the diagram. It's the same number of lanes that exist currently, basically?
So I would say in general, yes. It's actually depends on where you're at, but the multi-interchange concept only has 2 to 3 lanes in each direction, and But in general, but particularly between Benson, Northern Lights, and Fireweed, it's 3 lanes in that stretch, and it's 3 lanes between 36. So you've got of the 57,000 cars a day that are on the Seward Highway now, about 35 to 45,000 of them are midtown driven. So we're trying to make sure we accommodate that on the frontage roads, so that when the freeway comes down the middle, it's going to have, initially at least, it's going to have a lower volume because it's just going to take that remainder.
Steve, you said, you showed a picture that had, I thought the frontage road or this thing was 2 lanes with the pathway and so on. But would that be only after you put in the highways? You'd rebuild those?
No, the lane configuration on the frontage road theoretically would not change. But in the interim, you would have the same lane configuration before you put in the freeway as after. And if you end up having to leave it there a long time, then that changes it. But if it's there as we envision for a couple, 2 or 3 years until the freeway comes through, we're envisioning that yes, this concept, which has this cross section, with this being either 2 or 3 lanes wide, that configuration, and here you can see we've got our trench section coming down. That's kind of what we're envisioning, and then the freeway would be down here, roughly 20 feet between the top of this road and the top of the pavement down here for the cut section.
So that's 2, but it'd probably be 3, because most of that section is 3 lanes.
Yeah, that's right. It'd be 2 to 3. There are some sections where it's 1, but it's generally 2 to 3 on the multi-interchange concept. This would be 3 to 4 on the CD concept.
Steve, I hate to cut you off now. Are you going to be around for a little bit afterwards?
We'll stick around as long as you'd like.
Great. So, folks in the audience, if you'd like to ask your questions to Mr. Noble or to Mr. Holland afterwards, they'll stick around for a little bit. But we kind of got to wrap up here. So we missed our 16-minute window.
Very close, not taking
No, they're really 45 minutes. Anyway, but thank you very much for the presentation to both of you. And your next public meeting will be, one more time?
Our next public meeting is currently penciled in for November 12th.
Okay, and that will be at LUSAC?
At the LUSAC Library.
Yep. See you waving that gavel, but I know we've got some other stuff.
We got some more issues here. Okay, thank you very much for that presentation. Okay, real quick, moving on to agenda item number 7, general information on AMATS. Craig, do you have some issues?
I don't have anything else. I'm just down on 7A, the freight forum. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay, John Cecil, our freight plan.
Thank you, John Cecil, AMATS staff, Freight Mobility Coordinator. So every 2 years, the Freight Advisory Committee sponsors a freight forum. And this year's freight forum is scheduled for October 4th at UA8. It's Friday, 1 to 4:30. And invitations have been sent out to speakers and to participants from the freight community and logistics. Any questions?
Is it free?
It is.
Free?
Free, yes. Yeah, and free parking at UAA that day, which is always good.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, does the committee have any other general information items they want to present? Mr. Peterson? No. Mr. Weddle? Thank you. Mr. Shute? Okay, a couple quick comments from DOT. Thank you again to the AMATS staff on all the huge effort on the MTB 2040. I know we're almost there, but you've really done a huge, heavy lift there, and I want to recognize that effort and thank you all for that. So, job well done. For DOT, we're wrapping up our projects here real quick in the next coming weeks. You'll be happy to know we're doing the final walkthrough on Anchorage International North-South Runway. So all those jets that have been flying over your house for the last, and my house as well, for the last 2 years are finally going to go away. So we'll get back to normal traffic patterns. So that will be a lot of goodness in that. That's all I had. Committee comments at all?
I actually had a question about that.
Oh, okay.
Someone had asked me that now, since they just recently announced they're going to be building another 1 million square feet of space for FedEx or those type of companies out at the airport, we have runway capacity to handle the additional flights?
Apparently so.
Apparently, is it getting?
I'm not an aviation planner, so I can't.
All right, just drop.
If they're building it, I'm assuming they got it.
Okay, I mean, it's good news, but, you know.
All right, real quick, are there any wrap-up public comments? Any at all? Mr.
Just a real quick comment, a reminder, our next month policy committee meeting, we're moving it back a week. So it'll be on the 31st instead of our regular scheduled time. All AMATS staff will be attending a conference at our regular time, so the committee already knows that, and we will have it posted on our website and send out notices, but just letting folks know. Same location, same time, just a week later.
Happy Halloween.
It will be. Everyone's invited to dress up in costume.
Okay. Other than that, any other final comments? Do I have a motion to adjourn? So moved. And the meeting is now adjourned at 2:37.
Really hinted that out, 'cause I just.
You have money.